The rain fell in steady sheets that Thursday evening, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected neon and headlights. Inside the glass tower of Sterling Innovations, the 15th floor was nearly empty. Most employees had left hours ago, eager to escape into their evening lives. But Emma Harper remained at her desk, surrounded by coffee cups and crumpled papers, staring at her computer screen with burning eyes. She had been at Sterling for 4 years. For long years of arriving early and leaving late, of double-checking reports that her supervisor would claim as his own, swallowing her words during meetings while others took credit for her ideas. Tonight, something inside her had finally cracked. Emma's fingers trembled as she typed, the words she had rehearsed in her mind 1,000 times. I hereby submit my resignation from Sterling Innovations, effective immediately. The cursor blinked at her, waiting. She took a shaky breath and hit print. The office was quiet except for the hum of the printer. In the distant rumble of thunder, Emma folded the letter carefully, sliding it into a crisp white envelope. Her hands were steady now, filled with the strange calm that comes after a long-fought decision. She looked around at her cubicle, at the awards tucked away in drawers that no one ever saw, at the projects that had consumed her nights and weekends. This was supposed to feel liberating. Instead, it felt like defeat. Emma knew she should take the letter to Human Resources in the morning. Follow proper procedure. Give 2 weeks' notice. But something in her rebelled against the idea of prolonging this any further. If she was going to leave, she wanted to do it on her own terms. She wanted someone at the top to know why Sterling was losing good people. The executive floor was on the 20th level. Emma had only been there twice in 4 years, both times to deliver urgent documents. As she stepped into the elevator, her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair, pulled back in a hasty ponytail, showed strands of premature gray. She looked exhausted because she was exhausted. Exhausted from trying to prove herself in a place that refused to see her. The elevator doors opened onto a different world. Soft lighting, illuminated cream-colored walls adorned with modern art. The carpet beneath her feet was thick and silent. Everything here spoke of power and money, a stark contrast to the fluorescent-lit cubicle farm below. One office at the end of the hall still glowed with light. Nathan Cross, CEO Emma, had seen him from a distance at company meetings. A tall figure in expensive suits who spoke about innovation and integrity. She wondered if he had any idea what really happened on the floors beneath. Her knock on his door sounded. Too loud in the quiet hallway. Come in, a voice called from inside. Emma pushed open the door and stepped into an office that seemed to be made entirely of glass and possibility. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city. Nathan Cross sat at his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, looking far more human than she had expected. He glanced up, surprise flickering across his features. Can I help you? Emma's prepared speech evaporated. She stood there, envelope in hand, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look. Mr. Cross? I'm Emma Harper. I work in marketing. I needed to give you this personally. Nathan set down his pen, giving her his full attention. There was something disarming about his gaze, the way he looked at her as if she was the only person in the world at that moment. At 9 o'clock at night, I didn't want to wait until morning. Emma stepped forward and placed the envelope on his desk. It's my resignation letter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Nathan picked up the envelope, turning it over in his hands without opening it. Then he did something completely unexpected. He stood, walked to the door, and locked it. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you doing? I'm keeping you from making a mistake. Nathan leaned against the door, arms crossed, his expression serious, but not threatening. Sit down, please. Tell me why one of my employees is quitting at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. You don't even know who I am. Emma Harper, marketing analyst, hired 4 years ago straight out of university. Responsible for the campaign concepts that increased our client retention by 32% last year. Though the credit went to your supervisor, James Sullivan, Nathan returned to his desk. And Emma noticed he had not opened her resignation letter. I know exactly who you are. Emma sank into the chair opposite him, stunned. How? I read every performance review that crosses my desk. I attend meetings where people present ideas they clearly didn't come up with themselves. I'm not blind to what happens in my own company. Nathan's voice held a note of frustration. But I also can't fix problems I'm not directly told about. The words Emma had kept locked inside for years suddenly came pouring out. She told him about the stolen ideas, the belittling comments, the way James made her feel invisible except when he needed someone to blame for his mistakes. She talked about the sleepless nights, the anxiety that had become her constant companion, the slow erosion of her confidence. Nathan listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When Emma finally fell silent, he opened a drawer and pulled out a file. Her file? I've been watching your work for over a year, he said quietly. Every report you've submitted, every campaign you've designed. Do you know why I haven't promoted you yet? Emma shook her head, afraid to hope. Because I was waiting for you to realize your own worth. I wanted you to come to me, to fight for yourself, to demand what you deserve. Nathan leaned forward, his gaze intense. But instead, you're running away. I'm surviving. Surviving isn't the same as living. Nathan opened her resignation letter and, to Emma's shock, tore it in half. I have a different proposal. Starting Monday, you work directly with me. No more James, no more stolen credit. I need someone who understands this company from the ground up, someone with fresh ideas and the courage to speak truth to power. Emma's mind spun. You can't just promote me like that. People will talk. Let them talk. I've spent too long building this company to watch good people leave because of bad managers. Nathan's voice softened. Emma, I see you. I see your talent, your dedication, your potential. The question is, do you? The rain continued to fall outside, but inside that office, something shifted. Emma looked at the torn resignation letter, at the man who had just offered her a lifeline she hadn't dared to imagine. Why? She whispered. Why me? Nathan smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his entire face. Because 4 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. Someone saw my potential when I couldn't see it myself and gave me a chance. I'm simply paying it forward. Emma thought about the woman she had been when she walked into this office, defeated and ready to give up. She thought about the years of silence, of shrinking herself to fit into spaces that were too small for her dreams. And she thought about what might happen if she said yes to this impossible offer. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. I don't need you to know. I need you to try. Nathan extended his hand across the desk. What do you say, Emma Harper? Are you ready to stop surviving and start living? Emma looked at his outstretched hand, at the opportunity glimmering in front of her like a door opening onto a brighter world. Outside, thunder rumbled, and lightning split the sky. She thought about how storms always come before clarity, how sometimes you have to walk through the rain to find the rainbow. She reached out and shook his hand. I'm ready. The weekend passed in a blur of nerves and anticipation. Emma spent Saturday reorganizing her tiny apartment, as if clearing physical space could somehow prepare her for the mental shift ahead. Sunday brought insomnia and a dozen outfit changes before she finally settled on a navy blazer and cream. Blouse that, said professional, without trying too hard. When Monday morning arrived, she stood outside Sterling Innovations watching other employees stream through the revolving doors, and for the first time in 4 years, she felt something other than dread. The 20th floor greeted her with the same hushed elegance as before. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and perfectly styled silver hair stood waiting by the elevator. She extended her hand with a warm smile that immediately put Emma at ease. You must be Emma. I'm Patricia Mills, Nathan's executive assistant. Welcome to the chaos. Patricia's laugh was genuine as she guided Emma down the hallway. Don't let the fancy carpets fool you. We work harder up here than anywhere else in the building, but at least the coffee is better. Emma's new office was smaller than Nathan's, but still larger than any space she had occupied before. Windows overlooked the city, and her desk held a nameplate that read Emma Harper, Senior Strategic Advisor. She traced the letters with her fingertips, still unable to believe this was real. Nathan wants to see you at 8:30 for the morning briefing, Patricia said, setting a folder on the desk. These are the current projects requiring immediate attention. The Singapore expansion, the merger talks with Phoenix Technologies, and the complete overhaul of our corporate culture initiative. Light reading for your first day. Emma opened the folder and felt her stomach flip. These were decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. He wants my input on all of this? He wants more than input. He wants your perspective, your ideas, your honesty. Patricia paused at the door. Nathan doesn't do anything halfway, Emma. If he brought you up here, it's because he believes you can handle it. The question is whether you believe it. The morning briefing included Nathan, Patricia, the CFO Michael Chen, and the head of operations, Diana Rodriguez. Emma sat quietly at first, observing the rapid-fire discussion of quarterly projections and strategic pivots. These were people who spoke in acronyms and referenced decisions made in boardrooms. She had never entered. Then Nathan turned to her. Emma, you've been in marketing for 4 years. What's your read on the Singapore campaign? All eyes shifted to her. Emma felt her throat tighten, the old instinct to shrink and defer rising up. But then she remembered Nathan's words. I see you. She took a breath and spoke. The campaign is technically flawless, but it's missing soul. We're presenting Singapore as a market to penetrate rather than a community to serve. The research shows what products they buy, but not why they buy them or what they value. We're speaking at them instead of with them. Silence filled the room. Emma's heart pounded. She had just criticized a campaign that had probably cost hundreds of thousands to develop. Diana leaned forward, eyes sharp with interest. Go on. If we want genuine market penetration, we need to start with listening. Hire local consultants, conduct community forums, understand the cultural nuances we're missing. Our current approach is colonial, not collaborative. Emma pulled out her tablet where she had spent Sunday nights sketching ideas. What if instead of one massive launch, we did a series of smaller community-specific initiatives? Test, learn, adapt. Show Singapore we're there to contribute, not just to sell. Michael nodded slowly. That would require restructuring the entire timeline and budget. It would also increase our success rate by at least 40% based on similar approaches in other markets, Emma countered. Pulling up comparative data she had researched, Nathan's expression was unreadable. Then he smiled. Diana, Michael, work with Emma to revise the proposal. I want the new approach on my desk by Friday. He stood, gathering his papers. This is exactly the kind of thinking we need. Fresh eyes, unafraid to challenge the status quo. As the meeting dispersed, Diana caught Emma's arm. That took guts. Most people spend their first week nodding and agreeing with everything. You might actually survive up here. The compliment warmed Emma more than she wanted to admit. But her moment of triumph was short-lived. As she returned to her office, she passed the 15th floor elevator just as James Sullivan stepped out. His face darkened when he saw her. Oh well. Emma Harper on the executive floor. I heard the rumors, but I didn't believe them. James's voice dripped with insinuation. Interesting how quickly you moved up after a private evening meeting with the CEO. She knew exactly what he was implying, and the unfairness of it made her want to scream. But she had spent 4 years letting James's words cut her down. Not anymore. James, I earned this position through 4 years of work that you repeatedly took credit for. If you have concerns about my qualifications, I suggest you take them to HR. Otherwise, I have actual work to do. She walked past him, head high, refusing to let him see her hands shake, but James wasn't finished. Over the next 2 weeks, whispers followed Emma through the building. She overheard conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Anonymous comments appeared on the company's internal message boards questioning her sudden promotion. The implication was always the same. She had slept her way to the top. Emma threw herself into work. Determined to prove her worth through results, she redesigned the Singapore strategy, collaborated with international teams, and spent late nights ensuring every detail was perfect. Nathan treated her exactly as he treated every other senior advisor, with professional respect and high expectations. If he noticed the rumors, he never mentioned them. Then came the Thursday that changed everything. Emma was presenting the revised Singapore proposal to the full executive board. 20 faces stared at her from around the massive conference table, including several board members she had only seen in company newsletters. Her PowerPoint detailed the community-focused approach, the revised budget, the projected outcomes. She was halfway through when James burst into the room. "I apologize for the interruption, but I have information the board needs to hear." James's face was flushed, his voice too loud. "This entire proposal is based on stolen research from my team. Emma Harper has been using her position to access proprietary work and pass it off as her own." The room erupted. Board members exchanged glances. Nathan's expression turned to stone. Emma felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. This was it. James had finally found a way to destroy her. "That's a serious accusation," Nathan said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Do you have evidence?" James pulled out a folder, spreading papers across the table. "These are drafts from my team dated 3 months ago. Compare them to Emma's proposal. The similarities are undeniable." Emma stared at the documents, her mind racing. Then she recognized them. They were her own notes, the ones she had submitted to James's team as part of her regular duties. He had kept them, filed them under his team's name, and was now using them as evidence against her. The old Emma would have shrunk away, would have apologized and accepted defeat. But something had changed in these past weeks. Nathan had seen her worth. Diana had respected her ideas. She had tasted what it felt like to use her voice. She would not be silenced again. Emma stood, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Those documents are mine. I created them 3 months ago as part of my regular submissions to James's department. I have the original files, complete with metadata showing creation dates, my user ID, and revision history. James has been filing my work under his team's name for years." "That's absurd," James sputtered. "Why would I do that?" "Because you've built your entire career on other people's ideas." Emma pulled out her laptop, connecting it to the projector. "I've kept copies of everything. Every email where you requested my input and later presented it as your own. Every meeting where you dismissed my suggestions only to propose them as your ideas weeks later. Every performance review where you took credit for work you never touched." The evidence filled the screen. Timestamps, email chains, document histories, for years of theft laid bare for everyone to see. The board members leaned forward, expressions shifting from skepticism to shock to anger. Nathan stood, his voice cutting through the tension. "James, you're suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation. Security will escort you from the building." "You can't do this," James protested, but 2 security officers were already moving toward him. "This is favoritism. This is bias. This is justice," Diana interrupted, her voice sharp. "We've all wondered how you produced such innovative work while your team consistently underperformed. Now we know." As James was led from the room, Emma remained standing, her entire body trembling with the aftermath of adrenaline. The board members were talking among themselves, reviewing the evidence she had presented. Nathan caught her eye and gave a small nod of approval. Patricia appeared at Emma's elbow with a glass of water. "Drink this. And breathe. You just did something extraordinary." The meeting continued with Emma presenting the rest of her proposal, but she barely remembered the details. Everything felt surreal, as if she had stepped outside her own body and was watching events unfold from a distance. When the board voted unanimously to approve her Singapore strategy, the applause seemed to come from very far away. Afterward, Nathan asked her to stay behind as the room emptied. They stood by the windows overlooking the city, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. "I knew James was taking credit for work that wasn't his," Nathan said quietly, "but I never realized the extent of it. I'm sorry you had to deal with that for so long." "Why didn't you say something if you knew?" "Because you needed to find your own voice, to realize you didn't need me or anyone else to validate your worth." Nathan turned to face her. "Today, you proved you could stand up for yourself. That's more valuable than any promotion I could give you." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but they were different tears than the ones she had cried weeks ago. These were tears of release, of transformation, of finally becoming the person she was meant to be. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." Nathan smiled. "I didn't make you into anything, Emma. I just gave you the space to become who you already were." As Emma returned to her office that evening, she noticed something different in how people looked at her. Not with suspicion or judgment, but with respect. She had earned her place here, and everyone knew it. 3 months passed like pages turning, in a book Emma never wanted to put down. The Singapore project launched to remarkable success, generating headlines in international business journals and setting a new standard for how sterling innovations approached global markets. Emma found herself invited to speak at conferences, consulted on strategies that reached far beyond marketing, and mentioned, in the same breath as the company's top innovators, but success brought its own complications. The more time Emma spent working alongside Nathan, the more she noticed things that had nothing to do with business. The way he listened with complete attention when she spoke, as if her words mattered more than anything else in that moment. How his rare smiles seemed reserved especially for her, transforming his serious features into something warm and genuine. The accidental brush of hands when they reached for the same document, the lingering glances across conference tables, the conversations that stretched long past business hours into territory that felt dangerously personal. Emma tried to ignore it. Nathan was her boss, her mentor, the man who had given her a second chance when she was ready to give up. Getting involved with him would confirm every ugly rumor that had circulated when she first arrived on the 20th floor. It would undermine everything she had worked so hard to prove, yet her heart seemed to have its own agenda, one that accelerated every time Nathan entered a room. It was a rainy Tuesday evening, so similar to that first night that Emma felt caught in some strange loop of time. She was alone in her office reviewing proposals for the European expansion when Nathan appeared in her doorway. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and there was something different in his expression, something vulnerable. "Do you have a minute?" he asked, of course. Emma gestured to the chair across from her desk, but Nathan remained standing, hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this professionally, but I'm realizing there's no professional way to say it." Nathan took a breath. "So, I'm just going to be honest. These past 3 months working with you have been the best, of my career, not because of the success we've achieved, but because of who I get to achieve it with." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "Nathan, I don't think... Please let me finish." He moved closer, his voice soft but steady. "I know all the reasons this is complicated. I know people will talk that they'll say, I promoted you because of personal interest rather than merit. But Emma, you earned everything you have here. Your talent speaks for itself, and my feelings for you don't change that truth. They're just something separate that I can't seem to control anymore." The rain drummed against the windows, filling the silence that stretched between them. Emma stood, needing to be on equal ground for this conversation. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying that somewhere between that first night when you handed me your resignation and now, I stopped seeing you as just a brilliant colleague. I started seeing you as someone I think about first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Someone whose happiness matters to me more than my own." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration Emma had never seen from him before. "I'm saying I have feelings for you, Emma. Real, complicated, completely inappropriate feelings that I've tried and failed to ignore." Emma's mind raced through a dozen responses. The practical voice reminded her of company policies, of how this could damage her credibility. The fearful voice warned her that mixing professional and personal always ended in disaster. But beneath those voices was something quieter and truer. Something that had been growing in the spaces between their conversations and the moments. When their eyes met across crowded rooms. "I need to know something," Emma said finally. "If I had never come to work on this floor, if we had just been to people who met somewhere completely ordinary, would you still feel this way?" Nathan considered the question seriously. "I think I would have fallen for you even faster without all the complications holding me back. You're brilliant and brave and kind in ways that have nothing to do with business presentations or marketing strategies. You make me want to be better than I am. Not as a CEO, but as a person." "This could ruin everything we've built," Emma whispered. But even as she said it, she was moving closer to him. "Or it could be the best decision we ever make." Nathan reached out tentatively, giving her every opportunity to step away. "But I won't pressure you, Emma. If you want to keep this purely professional, I'll respect that. I'll lock away these feelings and we'll never speak of them again. Your comfort and your career come first." Emma thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago, so afraid of taking up space that she had nearly erased herself completely. She thought about all the times she had chosen safety over authenticity, silence over truth. And she realized that Nathan wasn't asking her to risk her career or compromise her integrity. He was simply being honest about his feelings and giving her the freedom to choose. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. "I think about you too," she admitted. "More than I should, more than is probably wise. You scare me, Nathan Cross, because you make me want things I never let myself imagine before." "What kind of things?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "A life that isn't just about surviving or proving myself. A partnership built on respect and challenge and trust. Someone who sees all of me, the brilliant parts and the broken parts, and values both equally."
Emma smiled,
feeling tears gather in her eyes. "You make me want to be brave in my personal life the way I've learned to be brave at work." Nathan pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "Then be brave with me. We'll figure out the complications together. We'll do everything by the book, disclose to HR, maintain professional boundaries at work, prove to everyone that this doesn't compromise your position or my judgment. And if people still talk, then we'll let them talk while we're too busy building something real to care." Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "Emma Harper, would you take a chance on me? Not as your boss, but as someone who wants to know every part of you, who wants to support your dreams and challenge your ideas and stand beside you through whatever comes next." The rain continued its steady rhythm, washing the city clean. Emma looked into Nathan's eyes and saw not the powerful CEO who had offered her a second chance, but simply a man who was offering her his heart with the same vulnerability she was feeling. "Yes," she said. And the word felt like freedom. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, full of promise and possibility. It tasted like rain and coffee and the sweet relief of finally admitting a truth they had both been carrying. When they pulled apart, Emma was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the enormity of what they were starting. Over the following weeks, Nathan kept his promise. They disclosed their relationship to HR, established clear boundaries at work, and maintained strict professionalism during business hours. It wasn't always easy. There were knowing looks from some colleagues and a few whispered comments about favoritism. But Emma's work continued to speak for itself. She led the European expansion with the same innovative approach that had succeeded in Singapore. She mentored younger employees, sharing the lessons she had learned about finding your voice and standing in your worth. Diana became not just a colleague but a friend, often joining Emma for lunch and offering advice on navigating corporate politics. Patricia turned into a surrogate mother figure, checking in on Emma's well-being and sharing stories about watching Nathan grow into his role as CEO. 6 months after that rainy Tuesday, Sterling Innovations announced a major restructuring. Nathan promoted Emma to Vice President of Global Strategy, a position created specifically to harness her unique approach to international markets. The announcement was met with applause from the board and respect from her peers. She had proven herself beyond any doubt, but the moment Emma treasured most came on an ordinary Wednesday evening. She and Nathan were in her apartment, cooking dinner together in her tiny kitchen. Music played softly in the background and rain pattered against the windows in an echo of that first transformative night. "I've been thinking," Nathan said, stirring pasta sauce while Emma chopped vegetables, "about how we got here, and that night when you came to quit, I told you I was keeping you from making a mistake. But I was wrong." He turned to face her, setting down the spoon. "You weren't making a mistake. You were making the bravest choice possible, choosing yourself, even when it felt like giving up. I didn't save you, Emma. You saved yourself. I just gave you a different stage to do it on." Emma set down her knife and moved into his arms, fitting perfectly against his chest. "We saved each other. You gave me space to find my voice, and I gave you a reason to remember why you built Sterling in the first place. Not for profit or prestige, but to create something meaningful. We make a good team, the best team." Emma pulled back to look at him. "I love you, Nathan Cross. Not because you're my boss or my mentor, or because you changed my life, but because you're kind and driven and completely dorky about coffee temperature, and you laugh at my terrible puns even when they're not funny." Nathan grinned, that rare, full smile she had learned to treasure. "I love you too, Emma Harper. You're the most extraordinary person I've ever known." And I plan to spend the rest of my life reminding you of that fact until you finally believe it." They sealed the promise with a kiss. There in her small kitchen, with slightly burned pasta sauce and rain falling outside. It wasn't glamorous or perfect, but it was real and theirs and everything Emma had never dared to dream. A year later, Emma stood at a podium addressing Sterling's annual company meeting. She spoke about innovation and courage, about the importance of creating workplaces where people felt valued and seen. As she concluded her remarks to thunderous applause, her eyes found Nathan in the front row. He was smiling at her with undisguised pride and love. After the meeting, a young analyst approached Emma hesitantly. "Ms. Harper, can I ask you something? How did you become so confident? Everyone talks about your transformation, but no one knows how you actually did it." Emma thought back to that desperate night when she had written a resignation letter with shaking hands, ready to give up on herself. "I stopped waiting for permission to take up space. I stopped believing other people's narratives about my worth. And I found someone who saw my potential before I could see it myself, which helped me learn to see it too." She smiled at the young woman. "But mostly, I got tired of being small. I decided that even if I failed, I would fail while being fully myself rather than succeed while being someone else's version of who I should be." That sounds terrifying. It was. But you know what's more terrifying? Looking back at your life and realizing you never tried because you were too afraid of what people might say. Emma squeezed the analyst's shoulder gently. "You have something valuable to contribute. Don't wait for a crisis to realize it. Start speaking up now, today, in small ways that build into bigger ones." As the young woman walked away with a thoughtful expression, Nathan appeared at Emma's side. "Still changing lives, I see. Just paying forward what someone once did for me." Emma leaned into him slightly, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. They walked out of the building together into the golden light of early evening. The city stretched before them, full of possibility and promise. Emma thought about how dramatically her life had changed, how the worst night had led to the best chapter, how sometimes you have to break completely before you can rebuild yourself into something stronger. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, interlacing his fingers with hers. "I'm thinking that I almost missed all of this. I almost walked away from Sterling, from my career, from the possibility of us. I almost let fear win. But you didn't. That's what matters." Emma stopped walking and turned to face him fully, there on the busy sidewalk with people streaming past them. "No, what matters is that I learned something important. The right people will see your worth even when you can't see it yourself. But eventually, you have to start seeing it too. You have to become your own champion." Nathan kissed her forehead gently. "And you have. You're not the same person who walked into my office ready to quit. You're the woman who stood up to James, who revolutionized our international strategy, who mentors young analysts and speaks at conferences and makes me proud every single day." "I'm still scared sometimes," Emma admitted. "Scared that I'll wake up and this will all disappear. That I'll find myself back in that cubicle feeling invisible. Then I'll remind you every day that you're real and valued and exactly where you're supposed to be." Nathan pulled her close. "That's what partners do. We remind each other of the truth when fear tries to tell us lies." They continued walking, talking about their plans for the weekend. The new project Emma was developing, the vacation they were planning to take. Ordinary conversations that felt extraordinary simply because they were together that night. As Emma lay in bed listening to Nathan's steady breathing beside her, she thought about the story she would tell someday. Not the sanitized version for business magazines, but the real story about a woman who reached her breaking point and found it was actually a breaking open. About a boss who saw potential instead of problems. About two people who chose courage over convenience and built something beautiful in the process, outside. Rain began to fall again, gentle and cleansing. Emma smiled in the darkness, remembering how she used to hate rainy nights because they made everything feel hopeless. Now they reminded her that storms pass, that morning always comes. That sometimes you have to walk through the rain to appreciate the sunshine she had walked into. Sterling Innovations 4 years ago as a girl trying to prove herself. She had almost walked out as a woman ready to give up. But she had stayed, had transformed, had become someone she was proud to be. And this, Emma realized as sleep pulled her under, was the real gift Nathan had given her. Not a promotion or a relationship, but the space to discover who she had been all along. Someone brave, capable, worthy of love and success and every good thing life had to offer, someone who had finally learned to stay. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Sterling, Innovation's newest headquarters in Singapore. Emma Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling glass, watching the city come alive below. Her reflection showed a woman transformed, confident, poised, wearing success like a second skin. Behind her, the office door opened. Nathan entered carrying 2 cups of coffee, just the way she liked it. After 5 years together, some rituals never changed. "The board meeting starts in 20 minutes, he said, handing her a cup. "Ready to announce the new initiative?" Emma turned, a smile playing at her lips. The ring on her left hand caught the light they had married 2 years ago in a small ceremony, with only their closest friends and family. No corporate spectacle, just 2 people promising to continue choosing each other every day. "I'm ready. Though I still can't believe we're launching mentorship programs in 15 countries simultaneously." "It was your vision," Nathan reminded her. "The Emma Harper Foundation for Professional Development. Helping people find their voices before they reach breaking points." Emma thought about all the young professionals they had already helped, people stuck in toxic environments, overlooked despite their talents, ready to give up on dreams they had barely begun to chase. The foundation identified them, supported them, gave them tools and confidence to advocate for themselves. "It's strange," she mused. "If I hadn't almost quit that night, none of this would exist. All those people we've helped would still be suffering in silence." Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Maybe that's the point. Our worst moments become our greatest catalysts, if we let them." "You turned your pain into purpose," a knock interrupted them. Patricia poked her head in, now Emma's own executive assistant. "The delegation from Tokyo just arrived." "And Emma, your mother called? She wanted to remind you about dinner on Sunday. She's very proud of the magazine article, by the way." Emma laughed. Her mother kept every article written about her daughter's success in a scrapbook. Still unable to believe how far Emma had come from that tiny apartment, those early struggling years. As they walked together toward the boardroom, Emma's mind drifted to that younger version of herself, exhausted, crying, clutching a resignation letter like a life raft. If she could go back and whisper to that broken woman, what would she say? Stay. Just stay one more day. Because the door you think is closing is actually opening. Because the man who locks that door will unlock something in you that you didn't know existed. Because your story isn't ending, it's finally beginning. You are worthy. You are capable. You are seen. And 5 years from now, you'll stand in an office in Singapore as Vice President of Global Operations, married to a man who chose you every day just as you choose him. You'll run a foundation that changes lives. You'll mentor dozens of young professionals who remind you of yourself. You'll look back at this moment and realize that almost quitting was actually the first brave thing you did in a lifetime of brave things to come. So stay. Stay and see what happens when you stop running from yourself and start running toward who you're meant to become. The boardroom doors opened. Faces turned toward Emma expectantly, board members, executives, partners from around the world, all waiting to hear her vision, her strategy, her words. Nathan squeezed her hand once before taking his seat, a private gesture of support and love. Emma stepped to the front of the room, no notes needed. She knew this material by heart because she had lived it. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, we're not just announcing a program. We're starting a movement." As she spoke, her voice strong and certain, Emma felt a moment of profound gratitude. For Nathan, who had seen her when she was invisible. For Patricia and Diana, and everyone who had supported her journey. For her mother, who had taught her that strength came in many forms. For the young analyst she had once been, who had somehow found the courage to keep going when giving up seemed easier. But mostly, Emma was grateful for that rainy Thursday night 5 years ago. The night she had walked in ready to quit, and a CEO had locked the door and said, "You're staying with me." He had been right. She had stayed. And in staying, she had found everything she never knew she was searching for: purpose. partnership, and the most important discovery of all, herself. Outside the windows, Singapore sparkled under the tropical sun. Somewhere in that city there was probably someone sitting at a desk right now, exhausted and overlooked, wondering if they should give up. Someone clutching their own resignation letter, convinced that walking away was the only option left. Emma hoped they would find their way to someone who saw them. But more than that, she hoped they would learn to see themselves, to recognize their own worth before a crisis forced them to. Because the truth Emma had learned, the truth she now dedicated her life to teaching others, was simple but powerful. You don't need anyone to give you permission to be extraordinary. You don't need a CEO to lock the door and make you stay. Just need the courage to see yourself clearly, to speak your truth boldly, to keep showing up even when the world tries to make you small. The rest, the success, the love, the transformation, that's just what happens when you finally stop hiding and start living. Emma finished her presentation to enthusiastic applause. As the meeting transitioned to questions and discussion, she caught Nathan's eye across the room. He smiled at her. It's that same genuine smile that had helped her believe in herself all those years ago. She smiled back. Silent conversation. It's passing between them. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting yourself be seen. The rain that had marked their beginning had given way to sunshine. But Emma no longer feared the storms. She had learned that rain was just weather, temporary and necessary. What mattered was having the courage to stand in it, knowing that clear skies would come again, and they always did. That closes behind you isn't trapping you. It's protecting you from leaving before you discover who you're meant to become. Sometimes staying is the bravest thing you'll ever do.